Hi everyone, welcome to our next episode. So in our previous episode, what we did was we added validation to our account sign up. So if you remember, if you watched the last episode, you can see that we added validations here, okay, to our form config. So previously, our form config just defines the label and the whether it's required or not. But now we have included a an array of validators. We have included the ability for it to have validators. Okay. And these validators will be applied by the form when we are rendering the form rather. Okay. And we have this helper class called validator, which contains a list of factories that give us validating functions or validator functions. Okay, so we have email, we have length, okay, which checks minimum and maximum length. We have is numeric, which we check to see if a value is numeric or not. We have positive or zero, which is useful when we want to find if a number is either a positive number or zero. And then we have no duplicate account email function to help us with validating if an email exists or not. Okay, and we've used these functions in our sign up form. So full name, we added the length validator. So this means a name can be a minimum of 2 characters, a maximum of 10. Email address, we check to see if it's a valid email, and we check to see if it's not a duplicate account, which means we're checking to see if there isn't an account with that email. Okay, if there is, we shouldn't allow the user to continue sign up. Then we have password length, which checks to see if the length of the password is between 8 and 50 characters. Then we have opening balance. We're checking to see if the value provided is numeric, as well as making sure that it is at least zero, okay, or more than zero. All right, so we'll do a bit of test just to confirm. Right, so let's do that. So to sign up, let's test our validators. So let's do A. It fails, so let's do Mary. Um, let's do add the job, right? Email address, let's put a valid email address. Okay, this fails, not valid email address. So let's do this. Okay, still not valid. Okay, this went through. So let's put a minimum password. Let's do, yeah, this fails. Should be a minimum of 8 characters. We can skip that by putting the correct password and then opening balance, let's say 3000. Or let's put the text. Fails because it's not a numeric value. Let's put a negative number. Fails because it's negative number. However, let's put a positive number. And this works. Right, so our calculation is successful. As you can see, we still have some logs. Okay, we did a var somewhere in the sign up, and we also did this when we were working on our account creation, account number. Let's see. Okay, so let's clear any unnecessary part of the code. Before I do that, let me save a copy of this. So to let me call this picture sign part two. Yeah. All right. So let's remove this. We don't need it. We've already handled the validation, so we don't need this as well. So in this case, this will be number 2. This will be number 3. Okay, you can say collect and validate registration data. Battery hash number 4. And then we have number 5, which is the notification. We also have a log in our account mentioned with 2. Uh, let's remove this and let's remove this as well. Right, so we can start. So the next feature is our login feature. Okay, so want users that have created an account to be able to log in into the account. So let's do that. So the first thing we want to do, well, is the login function. So to log in, I think we should create some kind of interface or some kind of notice to show that you are in this particular page. So we'll just do a simple print line, which will show something like this. Login. This will suffice. We could also do something similar for our registration form. So you can see account registration. Mm, I'm going to call this account login. Yeah, I want to ensure that there is a consistent length. So let's see how many equals to do we need to metric this one? 3 to 4. Wait. Mm, all right, so this works for now. We'll find a way to see if we can automate this to make it nice. Or it's been very difficult to track every single entry. We might do that in a bonus episode. All right, so let's do that. So first, for logging in, what do we need to log in? We need the we need username and password. That's all we need. So let's create our form to do that. So say form config. We need username, new form config. This would be email address. You can say email slash username. So about that interruption. Yeah. Okay, so email, and this will be required. So set that to true, and we'll have password, new form config. Say password, and this will be true as well. Okay. So what do we need to do any validation? We need to ensure that this is an email address. So let's add a validator for that. Okay. Um, yeah, I think that's about all we need. Okay. We don't need a validator for password. We could do a minimum length password, but it's already required, so that won't be necessary. Okay, but we could do it though, but it won't have much impact. Alright. As long as a null password won't be provided, that's fine. And we might have legacy users that needs to provide maybe an older password that had a different requirement than because requirements can be updated um, as we go along. So let's say previously you might say you just want characters and um, maybe just characters or numbers, and later you added a requirement to say extra, add a symbol. We don't want to. If we update our login form with the new requirement, it might prevent legacy users, that's users that signed up with the old requirements, they might not be able to log in. So we just, as long as a value is provided, we'll take that as a valid password. Yeah. Right. So the next thing would be to render the form and get our data. Right. So let's do that. So say form data equals CLI helper and form config. So this will have our form data. So first thing we collect and validate login data. Then the next thing will be to check for um let's say check validity. Okay, let's say validate login credentials. Yeah, so this time we check our records to see if the username and password provided is valid. Now, how do we validate this? So first we need to check to see if there is an account with this username, and then when we check to see if the password matches the password provided. So let's do that. So say account equals account entity, find one by username, then we get the username from data. So say username, right? So if account is not null, so if account is null, which means there is no account with this email or with this, yeah, with this email or username, or then we check the password. So we see account detail, I think, verify hash value, correct. Uh, account detail, account detail, account detail. Yeah, verify hash value, right? Which is here. So verify hash value. Then what's our parameter? I think we provide the attempted password. What is that? Attempted password. Yeah, followed by the hash. Okay. We- Okay, so the attempted password, which will be form data password, followed by the hash, which will take from, at this point, account is in null, so we can get the password from account. So to say password hash, I believe, yes, password hash. Let's check our account Yeah, password. All right. Okay, so if any of these fails, then we will tell the user that the password is invalid or username or password is invalid. Now, as a security, uh, what do I call it? English is failing me. As a security, uh, would I say caution? Yeah. Okay. We don't tell the user their email is incorrect. Okay, or their password is incorrect. We tell them either one of them. This is incorrect. This reduces um, the possibility of a user getting guessing the right email. Because if you keep attempting with the right email, let's say we say email is invalid, password is invalid, and we could keep guessing someone's email, or we could use the system to check if someone's account exists. So if I know maybe someone's email, for example, John. Okay, I know his email. I could check on the platform to see if his email exists. So if it tells me email exists, then I can now focus on the password. What is his password? Okay, but if the email, if it tells me that email or password is invalid, I'm not sure whether John has an account or not because I have to get a valid email and a valid password for it to tell me the credentials is correct. So okay, so this helps a lot in fending off attacks or possible hacks on a customer's account. So let's do it right. Let's see invalid credentials, or we could say um, let's say your email or password is incorrect. Please try again. And with this, we want you to provide these details again. Okay, so which means for us to proceed here, we should some kind of while loop that keeps the user till this condition, could I say, is valid, right? So let's create a while loop around the form. So we could say while true. So while this is true, we could continue here, or we could flip our condition to where account is not null and this is true. Now, if you notice, we actually had a bug because when we did this condition, we did an or, which means if there was an account with that email and the password is correct, it would have failed. Okay, so we were able to catch that. Luckily for us, we didn't deploy this application. Very important to test your logic before you deploy. Okay, so we'll only break out of this loop if the username and password is correct. So we'll flip this. So first we'll take this, we'll do a break here, and then so if it's correct, then we'll break out of this infinite loop. Else we print this and show the form again. Maybe we could do this and add some new line in between. Great. Okay. Now this form config, we don't need it to be inside the loop since we are only initializing it once. Okay, it's just the rendering that we need to repeat, not defining the configuration. So we could take this out of the loop. Okay. And for this one, we could have this here declared here so that we can access it later. So we'll set it to null for now, and it will have value if this um if this goes through. Or yeah, we could set it to null. Yeah, null is fine. All right. So the next thing, we are sure that the credentials is valid at this point. The next thing would be to navigate the user to the appropriate screen, which ideally should be their dashboard screen. Okay, that's where they would be able to see their main menu, and we don't have that screen created. So we could do that under here. So we could say private static function dashboard. All right. Maybe I'll take this up here. All right. So before we take the user to the dashboard, during the planning stages of our application, we said that when you create an account or before you can log into your system, if you are a first time user, you must set up your PIN. But if you set up your PIN, then we won't prompt this. So we want to make it in a way that first time users that haven't set their PIN would be directed straight to the new PIN to set up their PIN. But if you have your PIN set up, then you can proceed to the dashboard. All right. So which means here, what do we check? So um, check if PIN is set. So in this case, we can say if account. Uh, so what did we call that? PIN hash, right? Let's see, PIN hash, right? Get PIN hash. So we could say if get PIN hash is null. So if it's null, uh, let me add double equal to here. If this is null, then we will direct the user to the PIN setup screen, which would be this function here. Else, we take the user to the dashboard screen, which we should call render dashboard. All right. Okay. So let's try to test if this works. Okay. Maybe we can add a bit of indicator. So to say help right line dashboard just to be sure we are in the dashboard, and maybe I could add one here. Set up new thing. Right, so let's run this. Let's do clear PHP to PHP main login. Let's see. Okay, yes, it's not form config. It's um, where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? Form field config. Form field config. Okay, left, login, account. So let's use an invalid email that I know doesn't exist. Password, great. Email or password is incorrect. Please try again. So let's use a valid email and let's use an invalid password. Okay, right. So let's use an a valid email and a valid password. Great. Okay, as you can see, we've navigated to the setup new pin screen because a new user, a new account holder doesn't have a pin set by default. Right. Let's see what improvements can we make. Yeah, so let's have some kind of info that tells you your login was successful. Mm, so say this. Mm, let's do login successful. All right, let's try that again. Login Mary Editor at gmail.com. Password. Let's do new. Right, login successful. Okay, right, so that'll be all for this video. So in the next video, we would work on transaction pin setup feature, right? See you guys. Sorry, I was too hasty. See you guys in the next one.